Better Living Cookbook. When I think how far the onion has traveled just to enter my stew today, I could kneel and praise all small forgotten miracles, crackly paper peeling on the drain board, pearly layers in smooth agreement, the way the knife enters onion and onion falls apart on the chopping block, a history revealed. And I would never scold the onion for causing tears. It is right that tears fall for something small and forgotten. How at meal we sit to eat, commenting on texture of meat or herbal aroma, but never on the translucence of onion, now limp, now divided, or its traditionally honorable career, for the sake of others, disappear. The Slowdown is a production of American Public Media in partnership with the Poetry Foundation. This project is supported in part by the National Endowment for the Arts on the web at arts.gov.
.51 Friday morning here on KSJE. You're listening to the Scott Michlin Morning Program. Joining me now in Studio A, Megan Cullip. The Reverend Megan Cullip is with me now to talk about a second annual event that she brought to our community last year at this time, the Memorial for the Unclaimed. Welcome back to KSJE. This is not a very foreign place for you.
This is a very familiar place for me,
yes,
but usually not with my title. So
yes,
this is a different hat.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you're not wearing a hat, but it's a different hat. But it is your Reverend hat. And this is, again, something that you, as I mentioned, brought to the community last year, this Memorial for the Unclaimed, which I think is a really special thing and special night to do to bring us all together. And, of course, this year, everything we do together is done differently.
Right. Everything we do together is done in distance, but not in distance in our hearts, just in our physical bodies. Right. So hopefully it'll be no less sacred.
Exactly. That's true. And so this idea is to give the people that have passed away in our community who just, there was no family, we couldn't find their families, the people that deal with this stuff, just they couldn't find anyone else, and so they are unclaimed.
Correct. Yeah, to put it bluntly, I mean, it means that their remains, nobody showed up to claim them.
Yeah.
And when that happens, when somebody dies and they can't find any next of kin, they bring in actually the Office of Medical Investigator to come and do a thorough search. And then after that, if there is still no next of kin located, the county receives these names and their remains into their care. Right.
And so there are a lot of reasons maybe why that is, I guess. And so, but if you start to think about it, it's just sad that that for whatever reason, if the family that the person has no living family anymore, or maybe they're estranged, or maybe the family just doesn't know what happened to their loved one and they ended up passing away in our community over the past 12 months. I mean, this is how their name gets on this list that we remember on this night.
Right, right. And, you know, of course, the reading of the names is the keystone, the focal point of the service. But what you could expect is a pretty similar service that you would see at a memorial for anybody else, if you've been to one. And
I say we because, again, you have graciously invited me to be a part of this. So it's really you because it's your idea and you brought it to our community. But I'm so proud to be able to at least contribute a little bit to this ceremony.
It's very, we tried to get a wide community representation. Last year was perhaps a bit wider just because we all showed up at X time at X place and did the thing. So this year, so many moving pieces, but it's important to state that though I'm a reverend, this is not a religious event. That it's very non-denominational. It's very interfaith. It's not a specific religion, but it is a memorial that will have all of those aspects.
Right, and it's just a time to come together as a community to just stop and and reflect and present some. There's music and there's the reading of the names, as you mentioned, and just I think a very poignant evening. I think a lot of folks who came last year, and I think the organizers were surprised at the number of people who came from the community to the church and sat in the pews and just were with us for that hour and a half, whatever it was.
It was under an hour, maybe like 45 minutes or something, which is kind of what you can expect this time. But I was surprised for sure. And this year, of course, there's an added element. There's a COVID element because
that's right.
So many folks died, if not without next of kin, then at least isolated, depending on where they were staying at that time and what the rules were at that time. And visitor rules, of course, have been in flux a lot. But a lot of people had to die mostly in isolation, save for maybe a hospital staff member. And even folks that didn't die in isolation, certainly there were restrictions on who could be in the room. And so there's an added COVID element this year.
Right. Yeah. Even if they necessarily weren't unclaimed, there's still been a lot of death and a lot of just sad stories about these losses in our community. Right. So for the nitty-gritty details, if folks want to join, they can do so virtually this year. Again, it's COVID, so this is coming up a week from Monday, the 21st of December.
Correct. It's the longest night of the year. It's the winter solstice night. And so that was an intentional poetry. It's a long and cold night, and that seemed fitting. So that's why we chose that date.
Very good. And so right now you mentioned there's a lot of moving parts. You are putting together all these kind of moving parts to this ceremony that will then be kind of presented Monday the 21st.
Yeah, so we're pre-recording all the different pieces. Thank you, especially to Greg Allen from San Juan Safe Communities, who works for the county, for splicing all that together and putting all of that effort into filming. That's a huge job.
Right.
So.
And then your new employer will be kind of hosting this for us, right? On their social media and pages, right?
Right. So I work for Basin Health Companies, Basin Home Health and Hospice, and I do a lot of different things there, but I primarily work on the hospice side of things, and which is, of course, apropos for this event.
Of course.
And so
You're their chaplain. Basically, right?
Chaplain
that's your
plus.
Job. Chaplain plus. Other duties as assigned.
Other duties as assigned, and stuff like community outreach, so like this event.
Yeah.
And so Basin Home Health will be streaming on their Facebook and YouTube page, so pick your poison. Either one is going to have the same footage on it, and
And then I guess like we do here when we are streaming and doing it at the end of the event, it'll be available to watch even afterwards, right?
Yes.
So you can watch it live at 7 p.m. on Monday the 21st or catch it some other time. But that's when we'll all be kind of joining together as a community like we would at a church like last year to be together when it's live.
Right.
And so there's, as I mentioned, there's music, there's the reading of the names, and there are, I'm trying to remember, 12?
There's more than 12. So there are 14 names that we have this year. And
I read half of them.
Lisa,
I couldn't remember, I'm sorry.
I know. And Lisa Gomez from the county, who reads the other half, who's also in charge of this list, gathering these names, did make mention that there were most likely a lot of deaths in November, but it takes the Office of Medical Investigator a while to do the full investigation and confirm that. So we have 14 names that we will read, and then of course we'll have a moment for COVID losses, which of course it would take forever to read. I think if you started reading right now, you'd finish in a week or so if you went 24 hours. And so we'll have a moment for that. We will have somebody from the community will do a reading, and then I will do a brief reflection.
Nice.
So
very nice. And again, this is something that you had done in your previous community and brought to our community last year. And
sort of, yeah. Well, the previous community, so I mean, I lived long ago now in San Antonio, Texas, which is the 7th largest city in the United States, a fact that I always like to throw out. But they have a significant homelessness problem. And in San Antonio, I worked very, very closely with the emergency homeless shelter. So we did a annual recognition of those who died homeless. So this is very similar, though somewhat different, but we can safely assume that a lot of folks that are unclaimed didn't have a support system, which probably led to some homelessness.
Right. So. And again, I just think it's important and we should think about these individuals more than just one night a year, but at least on this one night, we can give them kind of the dignity and honor that they deserve for their life here on Earth.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, exactly. And that was kind of that was the precipitating factor. Is that I was, excuse me, geez, morning phlegm. I was working a lot with my previous employer, Minister of First Pres. We have individuals stop by all the time in need of support, in need of food, in need of just shelter from the elements, or just even like some company, and which got me thinking, what happens when these folks die? Do we recognize them? And it was so distressing to think about somebody living, dying, and never being acknowledged for having lived. That was the motivation.
They just
behind
disappeared, went away, and now, because of this ceremony, they'll be remembered.
Right.
Which is wonderful. So it is happening on Monday, December 21st at 7 p.m. You can join the ceremony live on Facebook, live pre-recorded, but it'll be on Facebook or the Basin Home Health YouTube channel. And we look forward to it on the longest night of the year, December 21st.
That's right.
All right. Megan
Join
Cullip,
us.
thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you.
Reverend Cullip, it's good to have you here. Thank you very much. And this is KSJE, Farmington, New Mexico.